Hello and welcome to the Idaho Reports podcast. I'm Logan Finney. It is fully February at the State House and bills are moving across the rotundas. Joining us this week to talk about a pair of housing bills is Senator Ali Rabi from Boise. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Senator Rabi, talk to me about these housing bills. Specifically, they have to do with the relationship between landlords and tenants and rental agreements. Let's talk first about one that it looks like a big bill, but it doesn't have a lot of changes it's actually making. This is a code reorganization.
Yeah, so Senate Bill 1043 is a reorganization of our landlord-tenant code. I worked with some stakeholders on this during the interim, and when we were reading through the code, it became very clear that there are really important sections of code spread all throughout the law, and it was really hard to find important sections of code that really affected landlords and tenants. So what we did is we moved those important sections up to the top where they're easier to find and read and understand. And there were also some sections of code that were in the same section that had nothing to do with each other. So we just broke out a couple of those as well. So just a complete reorganization to make it easier to read and understand in general. There was one substantive change to the code as well that we made, which is removing a reference to coverture from the 1800s.
I don't think most people know what that means.
People probably don't know what that means. So the one substantive change we made is removing this reference. It means basically it was at a time when women were treated like property. So when a woman was born, she had no legal identity and she was under her father's legal identity until she was married, at which time she would transition to her husband's legal identity. So references to coverture no longer exist in Idaho Code. It has been eliminated over the years. And I discovered when we were looking at the landlord-tenant code that this is the last remaining reference to it in our laws. So let's get rid of it.
So we're striking that one section. The rest of this bill is just rearranging things. For folks who maybe haven't read through these sections of codes that are all spread out, what sort of stuff is in there? Because when I think about my personal lease agreement, I usually am just reading through the lease. I don't know that I've read through the laws. What sort of stuff does the law actually regulate?
Some of the most important things that folks need to know about is that if a lease is terminated or rent is increased, landlords are supposed to give 30 days notice. There's also a law around rental fees that we passed a few years ago that requires that all rental fees that tenants are charged are written into lease agreements and that they're reasonable. So you can't be charged a fee that's not in your lease. Those are the main really important ones. There's also a preemption code that was passed recently that disallows local governments from regulating fees or other things. Wanted to make sure people knew about that one as well.
Rent control, those sort of things.
Yes, rent control. No rent control is allowed in Idaho.
So this reorganization bill has made it off the Senate floor. The other housing bill that you got off the Senate floor is a more substantive change, and this has to do with application fees. First, describe the issue that you're trying to fix.
The rental market is very competitive in Idaho. Any renter knows that right now. To get into a new rental, you have to apply to lots of different places, and you're competing with all kinds of different people to get into a place that you want. So there's been an issue with that in more recent years where folks are applying to dozens of places and not getting in. And there's no limit on rental application fees right now in our code. So every landlord could theoretically charge a fee for every single application. Renters are paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in application fees to find a new place to live. So that's the problem we're trying to address.
And so how does this bill seek to do that?
Yeah, so the bill will limit it so landlords can only charge 2 renters at a time. So you can charge fees only to 2 at a time instead of everyone. That's the main change. They also need to make sure the unit is available or will become available within 60 days, with some exceptions for different scenarios. They also need to disclose any criteria they require of a renter. So if they don't allow pets, or they only allow folks above a 600 credit score, they don't accept felons, they need to disclose that to tenants before charging the fee. And then the fee has to be related to actual cost to the landlord. So if it costs you $30 to run a background check, you can't charge $100 and make money off of the application fee. Those are the main tenets of it. It also does not apply to landlords if they don't charge a fee or don't receive a fee, so it doesn't really affect smaller mom and pop type landlords that usually don't charge fees. So a very simple fix to what I think is a really big problem in Idaho.
Sure. We even heard some pretty, what I would call some pretty conservative, business-minded voices on the floor of the Senate say they saw this as a pretty reasonable regulation.
It is. So we have all kinds of senators across the aisle supporting it. We had the bill passed with a large majority of votes, including Republicans from all ends of the spectrum, who, again, see this as a pretty simple fix. It's not changing the way good and responsible landlords do things. It's just codifying how they do things and trying to rein in the bad actors, and educate landlords about what best practices are and what they should be doing. It also, for the first time, will allow tenants to have a remedy where they are wrongfully charged an application fee. Maybe they apply and then immediately they get a response that says, sorry, we don't accept anyone with pets, or sorry, we require X, income level, and they've been charged a fee. They can, at least now, they'll be able to take the landlord to small claims court to try to get that money back. Right now, there's no remedy.
Or they could be notified up front before they have to pay that application.
Yeah, so exactly. They would have to be notified up front. But in the future, if there are some bad actors and things like that happening, they could actually try to get their money back, whereas now they're unable to do so. I think a lot of folks are across the aisle are supporting this. We just signed up a few more co-sponsors today. So we have Senators Ricks, Lenny, Nichols, and Kaiser sponsoring on the Senate side. Representative Handy, a Republican, will be carrying it on the House side as well. Because of the political makeup of our legislature, any bill that passes does have to have Republican support. I'm a Democrat, and so I do have to work across the aisle to get anything done, and I think it forces good policy, and it forces me to ask good questions and make sure that the bills I work on are good.
You're also, outside your capacity as a lawmaker, the director of Jesse Tree, which is a housing nonprofit located in Ada County. Outside of the legislature, what do you see as the other, I know there's a lot of housing issues, but what's kind of the biggest housing issue that's not on the lawmakers' radar right now?
I think a lot of lawmakers don't know right now how much homelessness and eviction rates are increasing across the state. Jesse Tree prevents eviction and homelessness, so we work with people that can't pay their rent, and we'll pay their rent, try to keep them in their homes, prevent them from being evicted and becoming homeless. Demand for our nonprofit and every other nonprofit that serves people in these precarious housing situations or who are homeless are completely underwater with demand right now. And the primary root of that problem is housing cost. People are just paying so much of their income towards their rent. They can't afford an unexpected emergency like a healthcare issue, job loss, car breakdown, whatever it may be, and can easily end up homeless. So I think we need to support our nonprofits who are on the front lines of this issue and try to stay upstream and try to prevent homelessness from happening to Idaho like it has to so many other states with affordability crises. But I think we also need to work on housing supply, and the state can have a really important role to play in that. We are one of 3 states that does not have a housing trust fund, which is essentially a financing mechanism for affordable housing developers or workforce housing developers. We put money into that fund a few years ago. The governor has proposed another $15 million to put into that fund, and I'd really like to see that pass this session. And there are a lot of things the state can do to be a good partner in creating more housing.
All right. Well, Senator Ali Rabi from Boise, thanks so much for making time, and thanks for sitting down with me. I know you're very close to welcoming a new child into the world, and I'm sure that's taken a toll on your lawmaking.
It's okay. It's actually been helpful to be pregnant because people are nicer to me. So, but yeah, I will have another baby coming soon. But trying to get as much done as I can in the meantime.
All right. Well, congratulations on getting this pair of bills across the floor, and we'll see how they fare in the House.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. We've got the right people on board, and we had a lot of votes in favor on this side, so we'll just keep the positive momentum going.
Thanks for listening to the Idaho Reports podcast. Tune in to the Friday show at 8 p.m. on Idaho Public Television, and visit idahoreports.org to stream episodes and keep up to date with the events of the 2025 legislative session.
Celebrating 75 years of science and innovation, Idaho National Laboratory's 6,200 researchers and support staff are advancing the nation's nuclear research, renewable energy systems, and cybersecurity solutions. Presentation of Idaho Reports on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore and Bettis family legacy of building the great state of Idaho, by the Friends of Idaho Public Television, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.